Hello and welcome to our special live coverage of President Ije명's first formal press conference, marking his first 30 days in office. In just a few moments, President Lee will give a speech and take questions from reporters. Now we see President Ije명 entering the press conference room. We'll come back right afterwards.
Good morning. 30 days of the President, questions by media, answers to the people. We would like to thank all the press members for participating in today's conference and also the grassroots media who are joining online. Today, this media conference is being broadcast live. Not only the media corps of the presidential office, but also other media members and also grassroots media. They are divided by regions and they're invited to this town hall meeting. I am the spokesperson of the presidential office, Kang Yoo-jung. Today's conference will be in this order. We will hear from the President on his opening remarks and then Q&A. And Q&A will be covering the livelihood economy. And then the second part will be the diplomacy, security and politics. And the third segment will be on society and culture. And also, we will go on to the free Q&A sessions. The method will be that the President will assign or name the person who will ask the question, and the opportunity to ask will be given to all the participating members equally. We would like to first invite President Lee for his opening remarks.
So it is a pleasure to meet you all. So I heard in the morning that you were voted to come here, and I heard that you had given all your business cards so that you could participate. So I would like to thank you for all your interest. So if possible, as for personal or very specific issues, I would like to refrain from those. So I think a lot of the personal questions had come in, but let us take care of those separately. And I would like to ask you to talk about things that are common across all our citizens, please. So first, I'll start with an opening remark, and then we can have a Q&A session afterwards. Honorable citizens, in a crisis of the nation, the new government came into office very briskly, and it has been a month since. The past 30 days is one where we had overcome difficulties together, and in every moment, I tried to instill all of the desperations of our citizens in my heart, and we had lived very fiercely. Above all, we really focused on recovering the livelihoods that had been collapsed. So as the first order after being inaugurated, I started a task force team so that we can recover the livelihoods economy, and I'm looking for wisdom and looking for solutions as well. So on the national finances, we have to take bold actions, and this is something that is required above everything else. And very quickly, more quickly than any other office, I had appointed and allocated additional supplementary budget of 30.5 trillion won. And I hope that we can recover very quickly by communicating with all our citizens. Secondly, I declare the recovery and the restoration of democratic Korea. And I participated in the National Assembly so that we can declare about the restoration of the democracy to the world. And thanks to our citizens, we will be able to stand tall once again in the global economy, and we were able to broaden our horizons on our democracy as well. And as for the Korea-US negotiation on the tariffs, we will make sure to do it quickly so that it is one that is favorable to our country, while it is one where we can have a win-win relationship. And thirdly, I started on the first step for the sovereign nation that is focusing on our citizens. So I'm receiving recommendations from the citizens, and I also created a complaint box for the citizens so that we can continue to hear the voices of our citizens in all across the country. Fourthly, I have started the journey for a just integration. So the third special prosecution team that is launched will make sure that we can restore democracy, and I think it will be one that will play out a core role for our citizens. Fifth, for the peace and stability of the Korean Peninsula, we're going to make sure that those can be secured, and we're going to make sure that this is not harming our citizens, and we took the first step. And as for the voices that were being loudly sent to the North Korea, I decided to eliminate those so that we can recover peace once again. Honorable citizens, it has been difficult, but we have started to take our first step on the stabilization of the nation. However, we still have very high waves coming towards us, and we still have a lot of challenges. And outside, there are things that are challenging our survivalship as well. And for the remaining 4 years and 11 months, I'll make sure to be at the forefront, and I'll be one that is being proactive so I can take the step before others. And for myself to be able to be obligatory to the citizens' desires, I'll do my best. So first, I'll get rid of the pains of the livelihoods, and I will be prioritizing recovering our country to be one that is stabilized. So I'll focus on the livelihoods, and I'll make sure that there are less expenses for our citizens. And I hope that we can get rid of the difficulties and overcome them, because only then can we live together in this world. Artificial intelligence, semiconductor, and other advanced technology industries, and renewable energy industries and cultural industries are all required, and I'll make sure that I'll invest in all of those for the future. And I will make sure that the technology-driven growth can receive traction, and I'll build a growth platform, and I'll prepare for KOSPI 5000 era. I'll make sure that our economy leads the world, and I'll make sure to secure the opportunity to invest in our companies so that our country becomes stronger. And I'll make sure that the funds and capital are attracted into a productive area instead of non-productive areas, and I'll strive to make sure that that happens. And I'll respect the market order, and I'll make sure that I can protect the actual consumers, and based on those policies, I'll focus on stabilizing the real estate market. And I'll focus on balanced development of the national territory, and I'll also help out and support for a balanced industry so that the large conglomerates and startups can live together. And as I give out the vouchers for the livelihoods of our citizens, I'll focus first on the provincial regions before the metropolitan regions. And as such, I'll make sure that I take care of the provincial regions more. And secondly, I will form a solid mattress for the society so that I can protect our citizens in all different areas. So even if you fail, even if you are not passing, you should be able to stand tall once again, because only then will you be able to innovate and recover. And as we face the challenges, we will have to make sure that we have a very narrowly filled social grid being made, because only then can we protect our citizens. So I'll make sure to do my best for all the preparations that are required. And thirdly, I'll make sure to do my best to fulfill the priority task to make sure that our citizens can live stably and peacefully. And I'll make sure to even come up with recurrence prevention measures so that we can come up with a safe society. So the workplaces that had led to death should be changed to workplaces where people can live, and I'll make sure that that can happen. Peace is one that is critical, and it is a prerequisite for the safety of our citizens. And North Korea has accepted our request to stop the voices being sent out to North Korea, and as such, I'll make sure that we can keep peace. Korea is one of the top 5 military powers in the world, and it is one with a huge national defense expense, and it is one of the military powerhouses in the world. And I'll make sure to be fully prepared against any provocations that can be made, but at the same time, I'll strive for peace in the Korean Peninsula. And I'll make sure that we can keep a solid relationship between Korea and US alliance. And I'll also make sure that we can have a very good Korea, US, and Japan relationship as well. And against this backdrop, I'll keep peace and the lives of our citizens. And I'll turn Korea discount into Korea premium for sure. And as for climate crisis and the trade affairs, we are seeing difficulties in the agricultural industries as well. And there are expectations and concerns for the new office, and I understand that there are a lot of concerns about the minister continuing from the previous administration for the Ministry of Agriculture. However, I'll make sure that I keep to it so that we can help our farmers and fisheries and etc. And I'll make sure to continue to hear the voices of the site and be reflecting them on the national policy so that we can find hope in the outskirts and the rural regions. We should come up with collective wisdom, and I think that is one that will be lighting our footsteps. And I'll make sure to reflect the voices of our citizens in the state affairs, and I'll make sure to make our country into one where citizens are the owners. And I have been delegated the authorities of our citizens, and as for relevant institutions that have that authorities as well, I'll come up with a very quick reform in those institutions. And as we have done until now, the main principle our government is the citizen. So I want to focus on making sure that we can have practical changes in the citizens, and I'll continue to execute a trust-based politics so that I can keep to the expectations of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those remarks. We would like to now begin the 30 days in office. Media asks and answers are given to the people. The Q&A session will begin. First of all, we would like to cover the areas of livelihood and economy. First of all, we respect the media corps of the presidential office, we would like to give the opportunity to the representative of the media corps of the presidential office. It is reporter Shim Won-gi. Mr. President, congratulations on the 30th day, and I would like to first thank you for such an opportunity. For the last 30 days, you have gone to visit the G7 summit. So you have been dedicated in the domestic affairs as well as foreign affairs. So I would like to ask you if you have anything that comes to your mind as an impressive action or things for the last 30 days. And also, you have been emphasizing on communications and close communication. So you have shown a lot of such activities, but also the opposition party has concerns as well. So for the participation and cooperation with the opposition party, do you have any plans such as conference or meetings with the opposition party leaders? Well, thank you very much for your question. So, since you had your first question, I think that was a very comprehensive question, so the answer would be lengthy. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. Actually, 30 days has gone by so fast, so we typically say that a day goes by but so fast, but now for me it's a chunk of a week, so it seems like, oh, the Friday has come back again. And why I focus on Friday is because on Saturdays and Sundays I'm kind of locked up in my residence. I am starting to feel the so to say, the pressure of the people surrounding me, the bodyguards and all of the police officers and security officers, because if I make a move, there are like almost 100 people who are on emergency call. So that is why I try to restrict myself to the residents on the weekends, and the time for me to stay at the residence just comes back so fast. So I have done my best, but we did not have the handover office, so we were not fully prepared. However, with a lot of time spent and endeavors, we are trying to fill in this gap. So my impression for the last 30 days is that we are doing what should be done, and we have many aides of mine, and Mr. Wee, who is the former ambassador, he had a nosebleed, so I feel sorry because I see their fatigue, but what I have as a conviction is that our public officials, their endeavors will pay off. It will have tremendous effect, and their endeavors would have 1.17 million times of an effect. Of course, we have some. We have sometimes think that maybe a day should be like more than 24 hours to 30 hours. So achievements so far, maybe not achievements, but what we are doing okay so far is the stock market. During my campaign, I did talk about this, but I have a strong conviction that just by normalizing the country's structures and systems, the Kospi will go over 3,000. And also, if we have the right policies in economy and politics, and also a stable peace on the peninsula, and also including the amendment of the Commercial Act, such policies to take its route, like preventing any stock market manipulation in the future, things like that. If they take on and take off, then we could have the people have more brighter future and have a positive outlook on the country's economy. And of course, limited to the stock market, I am glad that we're helping to some extent to the people's livelihood. Well, unity, integration, and appointment of personnel, they're all kind of connected. Of course, there are some complaints over personnel appointments, and we do have some shortcomings. And I know that people are pointing out that we should appoint better people. From our point of view, we have done our best, but from people's point of view or from the opposition's point of view, there could be some shortcomings compared to their expectations. But in terms of appointment, I would like to say a few words to the people. The person who has a similar color, so to say, or who are on our side, we can select such people, and that will be more convenient, and we could minimize the conflict. But as I reiterate, I am not a representative of the opposition party or the ruling party, but I am the president of the Republic of Korea, and that is what is my responsibility is, and therefore we have to operate the state affairs of unity and integration. Just by using people that we favor or we feel that it's convenient will have its side effects. We have to mix, to make it concrete, we have to mix pebbles, we have to make things, many like sands, and this should come all together to make a cement. So difference could mean inconvenience, but it's also a source of making synergy. And also, we have some people pointing out in terms of prosecution. But as I was the mayor or the governor, I do have experience of allocating and appointing different personnel, but if we leave out such people and that kind of people, these kind of people, then we have no one to work with. And especially in terms of public officials, they are susceptible and they work in the line with the command or the order of the superior. So the director or the person who is in lead should have the right direction forward. So that is how it works. The public officials work. So public officials is like a big mechanical robot. So they have a great power, but the supervisor who is operating that mechanical robot is the essence. Is it person A or is it person B who is in the director's seat? That really is the core and essence of this public official society.
So sometimes we say that it's like the spirit or that it's a sunflower, but we shouldn't be criticizing people like that, because as for the civil officers who are there as their jobs, they actually move based on the orders provided by the leader that were appointed and voted by people. And they were also trained that way. So ultimately, they do what the final director actually gave them the instructions for. So they might be a bit angry about criticisms that they're receiving because they just followed orders. So as for civil officers, they were trained and they are obligated to be facing where the sun is shining, so we shouldn't be criticizing them as sunflowers. And the one taking the responsibility should be the one who were voted by the citizens and who were appointed by the citizens. So we cannot cherry pick everyone. And if we do cherry pick everything and if we only use one, then it will be an endless war. So if possible, at best, it is best that we repair what had been broken before. And if there are any shortcomings, we should be filling them. And we should be working together. And therefore, we have to have the basic capability. And we have to make sure that we are loyal to our citizens. As long as we have that basic foundation, then we can go together. So I considered all of those in a comprehensive manner. And on one side, I am praised about it, but on the other side, I am also criticized for it. But what I want to say is the following. So as for the appointment of personnel, in itself is not the target or the objective. So it is more of the means for us to complete a certain policy. So we have to think about which policy to select and the results that we are going to get by selecting that policy. So I think focusing on that might be better. So if you can wait and see a bit, then it might be best. So I would like to ask you for it. So we cannot determine everything with personal appointment. So personal appointment is important. So if this person does not have the capability, is a bit useless, or is selfish and is corrupt, then that will be an issue. That will be a problem. However, if it is not so, then it is about propensity. So this person is close to that person, this person is related to that person. As for that, we shouldn't make that the determining factor. If we exclude everyone and by that, then that would be actually not right. And as for the complaints made by the opposition party, as for the complaints, I want to first understand whether those complaints are rational and whether there are any true grounds to it. If it is really with true grounds, then it is feasible, then I should be reflecting those as well. And I'll make sure to do so. And I'm going to talk continuously. So I don't think there is no reason not to meet them. Until now, it was the case for my personal life and also for my job as well. I don't put walls and I don't put boundaries. I don't think blocking everyone out by setting up lines is a good manner. So we should be meeting everyone and we should be communicating. And as for the National Assemblymen, they were all selected by the people and they are all delegates of our citizens. So I think they should fully be respected and I should be respecting them as well. And I'm going to try to meet them a lot. But as for the conference between the two heads of the parties, well, should I be making this regular? I am not sure about it. I don't think it should be a formality. So I think it should be held on an ad hoc manner whenever it is necessary. But as for this, since it had not been done, I think there are some side effects. So as for an official open meeting or official closed meeting, so there are things that had happened in the past. But it should all be us talking very frankly and honestly. But if it is an unofficial closed meeting, if we don't know about the meeting, then we can hold it more frequently. But if it's an official closed meeting, so then it would be best if you can keep the contents of the conversation confidential. So there are various things that we see. But now we are scared to talk because we are scared that we might be recorded. It's really that so. But as for an unofficial closed meeting, we can meet officially, but I just want to make sure that we can talk very frankly, and then we say that. But then the opposite side will actually sometimes record a few chunks of it and take the excerpts and be attacking me. So you might think that since we have not had such meetings, it might be an opportunity. But I just want to make sure that if we want to have a secret meeting, then the content should be confidential. So as for official and unofficial closed meetings, I hope that we can have them frequently. And we are all not small business owners. We are all people who are speaking for our people. So we're like spokesperson for our citizens, and we are delegates of our citizens. So we should not thinking about the personal interests. So we're not pursuing that. So we don't have to have any private feelings against one another. So you talked about should we be conceding to one another and be considerate of one another? Of course, I do think that way. So our personal interest should be excluded in a public job. So this way or that, sometimes they're not really related, and there are many things like that. And in those cases, of course, concession can be done. So whether we should be going to the right or the left, or we're going to take the bus or the plane, or are we going to take the train, of course, we can be conceding to those items. But if we do not take the plane, we might be losing an opportunity. And if we take a bus, maybe it's not going to be that. Then we cannot concede to taking the bus in that case. And there are things that must be done and things that should not be done. And as for the amount of job that must not be done, if we're conceding to the volume of it, I don't think that is right. So I'm sure that people will not be making such claims, but just as an example, it's an extreme example, for instance. Let's say until now we have stolen 10 items, and from now on let's just steal 8 items, or let's just allow stealing 2 items. We cannot concede to that. We cannot even say concession. So that's more of a collusion. So that's more of a compromise and a collusion. So I think we should be distinguishing against something called integration and something that is more like a suture. So as for concession and integration, as for what is required, since I am the final decision maker, I should be reviewing it thoroughly, and I'll make sure to do so. Thank you for your question. So thank you for your kind words. So I think a lot of the other journalists are also waiting. So next, President Lee will appoint 2 journalists and receive 2 questions. So I'll pass on the mic. So I should be picking journalists? Yes. So please raise your questions if you have any questions. And President Lee will be designating the person who should be asking the question. So please raise your hands if you have any question. So I'll pick a female journalist. So the one at the very front. So can you tell me where you came from and your name, please? So I'd like to congratulate you on first 30 days of inauguration. I am journalist Lee from KTV. So I think this was the case for myself and many others. A lot of people are anticipating about the 4.5 days work days in a week. So 5 days work days in a week has been obvious. And in one point, 4.5 days might become obvious. So when do you expect that to be? So thank you, Ms. Lee Yejin. So I'm not sure about the 4.5 days in a work week. So as for that 4.5 work days in a week, there has been some disputes, and the opposition party proposed for it, but the contents were a bit different. So working 1 day less for 4 days and working half day on the 5th day, that's really not 4.5 days of work. It's a bit of a deformation. So as for our society, I think we must achieve shortening of the labor hours. So working more but having less productivity and becoming more fatigued and losing national competitiveness, we cannot continue in this manner. So until now, I think we focus more on quantity rather than quality. So as for labor productivity, we do have to improve it, and we should be lessening the labor hours. So we should make sure that we have a right balance between work and leisure. So that is the global trend. And as compared to other OECD average, I understand we are working more, 120 hours more, and that is a bit more than a month, I heard, in a year. So we do have to shorten this so that we can ensure a healthy life for our citizens. So then it will also lead to increasing the number of jobs. However, we cannot make it mandatory. So some people think that we're going to turn this into a law and we're going to be implementing it at a certain time point. But I think that will lead to too much conflict and confrontation. So I want to make sure that we have social conversation and we expand it out very gradually. So then some criticize that, well, if that is the case, as for civil officers or state-owned companies and some large corporations will be applying it, and then it will be leading to polarization once again, right? So that might make sense. So since I work for a long time, you should not allow it for others. I don't think you mean to say that when you're criticizing about it, but I think if it becomes a social trend, then it will be a natural flow and there will be a realistic target for 4.5 work days in a week. So I'm sorry to talk about my childhood, but when I worked in a factory, I actually worked for 1 month consecutively. And then one day they said you can have 1 day a week off from a month. And I thought that was a really good system. And then a bit later they said you can have 1 day off every 2 weeks. And then it said 1 day off in a week. And then it became half a day work hours. And then it became that we stopped working on Saturdays as well. And I think this should be the way. So I want to make sure that it is done quickly but gradually. But I cannot pinpoint a certain time point. I want to ask for your understanding.
Thank you. This time I'd like to ask the reporter who is at the back on the right side. So when you get to the microphone, please state your affiliation and your name. Hello, I am from 강원도 Daily, 이재명. Well, as for Gangwon-do, we are the one and only divided province, and therefore the peace is an initiative that we have so many focus on. And after you have taken office, you have made a lot of initiatives and a lot of concessions in order to make peace on the Korean Peninsula. So what would be your policy in terms of making peace on the Korean Peninsula and also your North Korea policy? Well, you're from Gangwon-do People's Daily, right? Yes, Mr. Lee, thank you for your question. As for Gangwon-do and the northern part of Gyeonggi province, they are victimized by the division of the Korean Peninsula. And I always feel that it's quite pitiful that because of this tension in the militarized zone, and if the conflict is exacerbated, then the economy in this area it falters, and also the people's livelihoods and people's life itself is threatened. And this military tension, escalating military tensions, would be conflicting the endeavors to make peace. There are some cases as such. In order to expand peace and the endeavors to expand peace, I'm not sure if it is widely accepted or widely cheered on or encouraged. So, because we see that sometimes the outcomes are the contrary, but what is clear is that if we have better peace, then the conflict is somewhat eliminated, and when we have better communications and better negotiations and cooperations, then the peace could take place better and the economy stabilizes. Korea-US alliance and Korea-US cooperation will be the foundation, and based on that, and our military expense, which is 1.4 times of North Korea's GDP, that will speak to our prowess of national defense. And in the future, the modernizing the military and smart military, of course, these will be pursued continuously, and based on that, dialogue and communication and cooperation would be very important. Former President Kim Dae-jung had a sunshine policy, and that was the frame that was established back then. And as a matter of fact, even in times of war, diplomacy continues and dialogue continues. But if we just sever the dialogue itself, that would be very foolish. Even if we don't like each other, we have to listen to each other, and we have to negotiate and cooperate. And also to minimize the damage to each other and to maximize the interest of each other should be the way forward. We should not take the path of not letting go of anything so that this other side will not benefit. That should not be the case, because we have to walk the path of winning, so we take our interest and also the other side would have some sort of interest. And if the other side doesn't take anything, would that benefit us? I don't think so. So in terms of diplomacy, we have to be very rational and very rational basis approach is a must. And in the future, based on the U.S.-Korea alliance, we have to improve the ties with North Korea. At the moment, the hostility itself is too high, so we believe that would not be an easy task. But when I stopped the North Korea broadcasting at the borderline, I did have concerns how fast they would respond to our measures, but I did have a belief that they would reciprocate, but that reciprocation came a bit faster than I had expected. So these ease of hostility would continue. As I was working as a lawyer, although I was quite young, I did have some cases of like counseling the couples, married couples. So when I talk to them, I get to find out the root causes. And when I understand what's happening, then I would understand what would be the resolution. But if I take a closer look, it's most of the cases that actually just a little bit of a misunderstanding extrapolates and becomes a big misunderstanding and maybe end up in a divorce. So I sometimes recommended that you take counseling, and afterwards you have some dialogue and come back to me. But most of the cases when they went for counseling, they did not come back to me. So when they were in others' shoes or switch roles, then they could understand each other better. And as such, we could take this approach to North Korea. In other words, we have to communicate and think in other person's perspective. We should not go into the path of demolishing the others, but we have to have dialogue, communication, and cooperation and coexistence. And in our constitution, we do have a stipulation that we are pursuing a peaceful unification. It is not by absorption, but because absorption will have consequences of conflicts and hostility. But in the eyes of history, we respect each other. And it has been about 8 decades. And in the perspective of history, that's not such a long period of time, because after hundreds of years, some nations reunify. So I know that there are some voices that we should change the name of Unification Ministry, but what I'm saying is that in the long run, we have to take a long-term perspective and make communications and cooperations and dialogue with North Korea. In terms of concrete measures, I'm not ready yet, so I can come back to you with that. Well, I'd like to ask for one understanding, a housekeeping note, that at the moment we are in the sector of livelihood and economy, so please stay in the topic.
So next, we have News One, Won Gi-shim. He will come back, and in the voting ballot that we have prepared in advance, he will pick one. If you give it to me, then I'll call out the name on the business card. So it's almost like a real estate draw. So it feels very exhilarating to be getting the business card. So Kim Sung-min from Money Today. So please pass the mic to the journalist, please. And this is related to livelihoods and economy for your information. So I am Kim Sung-eun from Money Today. So I was picked by a ballot, and I'm really not this lucky. So maybe I was not lucky just for today. So it's almost like a lottery. So I think I'm happier than a lottery. So the supplementary budget proposal will soon be passed on the National Assembly, and that means that all citizens will receive about 150,000 won. And since inauguration, President Lee, you have come up with this proposal based on those meetings, and we cannot know about the specific outcome of it, but what is the expected effect that you have in mind? And also, based on this expected effect, once you have that effect, do you have an intention to give it out once more? So as for this use of national funds, what will happen? So this is one, to stimulate the national domestic demand. And during COVID-19 in the Gyeonggi-do province, as one of the first provinces, we gave out the regional vouchers to our residents, and then the government followed suit. And at that time, I think it was like the Office of Administration and Safety, and according to a research that was done by this institution, it led to triggering consumption. And as for the small businesses in the small alleyways, they received a lot of help, and it was quite effective in terms of regional economy, I heard. So as for the implications, we are just estimating and guessing at it. Nothing has been confirmed. And as for economic experts, they have differing opinions. For instance, some say that it might be better to allocate SOC funding and give out SOC funding, and it might be better to stimulate the economy. And I think that is not wrong. For instance, for road construction, as an example. So it's just spending money. So isn't that bigger? So there are some who say that. But on the other hand, this is not just about consumption stimulus, but it's also about supporting income because our citizens are having a hard time meeting their livelihoods. So there are cases where just because a family lacks a few hundreds of thousands of won that they end up committing suicide. So this is something that I have read before, so I get a lot of notes and memos. So it was something like I must buy and eat this fruit. So it was an expensive import fruit. So this citizen said that once I get the voucher, I'm going to buy this fruit and eat it. So maybe a lot of lay people might not think that way. But there are citizens who cannot even buy that one piece of fruit. I think this time around, the butchers and restaurants might have a better time because there are people who say that maybe this time around with the voucher I can have a meal out and have some barbecued meat together with my kids. So we say that we are one of the top 10 economies, but we still have some trouble with our meals, and I hope that our citizens will not suffer about having meals. So I think this will have the effect of supporting income and also redistribution of income. So to a very rich, ultra wealthy, 150,000 won might not be a lot of money, but as for some citizens with very tightened economy, 150,000 won will be a huge amount of money. So I think this will have the effect of redistribution of funds. So based on my experience, the alleyway economy is suffering greatly. So if you are looking at a reservoir, the very deep side, you might not think about it too much, but a lot of it would be shallow regions, and shallow regions are the ones being harmed. So I think this might be one with an impact of recovery. So considering the finances and the debt and the economy, I considered all of those factors to determine this amount. And as for the impact and the effect, I think it might be higher than what had been evaluated until now. And as for me to do it again, I think we will have to wait and see. So as for the finances, we don't have too much finances to be doing it once more. And as for the current economy, we are relying a lot on the sentiments, and people who say that next year's economy will become better next year, apparently it is at the highest number in 8 years. And I heard that the consumer index has also become higher. So I think this will act as a stepping stone, and once we have set the stepping stone, it will lead to a circular economy and a virtuous circle. And I think making sure that that happens again is the responsibility of our government as well. So we don't have any plans now. However, it's not that the world goes as planned. So thank you, President Lee.
Next, we would like to give the opportunity to the grassroots media who are on the media wall. Could you please show your hand? Then I will pick out the person. The person who showed the hand first. 옥천 Daily editor 양수철, is that right? Hello, I am reporter 양수철 from 옥천 Daily. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity for us grassroots media to attend. The president has experience in mayor and governor, so I know that you will have more understanding about what we are going through in the regions, and I hope that this would be a stepping stone to resolve many issues in the region. So the question is about you have your pledges of the concentration on metropolitan area and also expanding the regions. And I am living in Okcheon, which the population is very small. And just like the metropolitan area has a concentrated population, the Chungbuk population is concentrated in Chungju. So this kind of, there are concerns that such big cities will just absorb the populations, and I would like to ask for your take on what will be the policies to resolve such issues. You look familiar. Maybe it's because you have a great smiling face. Well, it's nice to meet you. Okcheon Daily. When I was a civic activist, I did have one of my one of my dreams was to make a regional newspaper, and I know that Okcheon Daily is one of the best practices. Well, the regional imbalance and the concentration of regions, and I think you have touched upon the most difficult policy of the Republic of Korea. I think basically the Myeon level to the small regional cities or towns, and those towns to regional big cities, and then those to metropolitan city, and the metropolitan city goes to New York. That is the flow at the moment. I'm not exaggerating, but I think the economy and the people, the population who are active in the economy is moving to in this direction, and also the investment is kind of going and outflowing to New York. So I think we cannot stop that flow itself, but the region and central, the excessive imbalance is very serious. And this is impeding the growth of the nation itself. In the past, it was the issue of concentration on big companies and a certain point of certain people and population. That was actually the national policy, but now it has been seeing and it has been giving out negative effects. And because of such measures, we are seeing a lot of imbalance, and this is kind of a trend, and it is hindering the continuous national growth. And I believe that we should have a great reform in this aspect. But in terms of policy and allocation of budgets, we have to have a region first or region priority policy that goes beyond putting region-centric policies. So among many policies of my administration, I think one of the core is the regional balanced growth. And during my recent cabinet meeting, I did give the order that whenever the government is deciding on a policy or allocating budget, we have to have a weighted table for each region. For instance, the distance from the metropolitan city or distance from the regional big cities. So we have many different types of indices as such that we can take reference to. For instance, I know sometimes I get in trouble because of these examples, but just for an example, let's say we have such and such subsidy. Let's say Gangwon-do is a province, and because the extinction is quite severe, then the weighted score would be 1.15, whereas Muju and Jeonbuk area would have such and such weighted points. So that would be multiplied to the total score. So for the population extinction area, as an example, the consumer coupon that we would like to give out soon, that would be applied. So in the future, we would have this type of table. So whenever we are having a determination on SOC or budget allocation, we can multiply these weighted scores on the table. And also making it an obligatory measure to look into the balanced regional growth would be also another policy that we might be able to implement. So in a nutshell, I am not going to turn a blind eye to the regional issues and the region itself. And also the housing issue in the metropolitan area is very dire. And I know that there is a controversy over, are we going to make a new town? And what I think is that, of course, there are different views, and some are saying that since we are short on houses, releasing the green belt regulations, we have to make new houses. But from the region's perspective, they are saying that that would not be the fundamental resolve. Because we are short on houses, making a new town would be resulting in making another metropolitan-focused phenomenon. So what we have in plan already, we cannot reverse it, but as of making additional new towns, in the perspective of continuous growth of the Republic of Korea, should be the perspective that we are going to take this perspective and review on this potential additional new town. To Mr. Yang, I'm not sure if Okcheon will see something new or a new kind of construction, but this sudden trend of too much of a concentration to big city or metropolitan city, that could be curbed to a certain extent. I'm not sure if Okcheon will see a new day of light, but we are going to take into consideration of this regional balanced growth. And out of those, one example would be the agriculture, the farming industry, helping the farming industry with different policies. And of course, there won't be additional taxation because of such plans, but we're trying to do things like that. I know if we don't have a concrete answer, I'm kind of elaborating. So
secondly, we will go into the area of politics, politics, security, and also diplomacy. And also, President Lee will pick two journalists for questions. So from the left-hand side this time around, from the front, you're looking at me with very desperate eyes. So isn't this a privilege to be sitting at the front? So you're the director from Channel A, right? So I know this journalist. So thank you for naming me. So I am journalist Lee from Channel A. So in the presidential campaign, you pledged to convert, and right now the governing party and the strong National Assemblymen are saying that we should be reforming before the Chuseok holiday. Do you also have that in mind for the reforming the prosecution office? And you also appointed Mr. Jung Song-woo And is it so that you don't have side effects rather than focusing on pace? So there are some who say that, so I would like to ask about that as well. So this is one of the hot issues, and I'm a bit worried about giving you an answer because this is a bit sensitive. So as for the prosecution reform and reforming the judicial office, so this is a realistic task. And I'm also from the legal industry, and for several decades, of course, I made a living while working in the legal affairs. However, I think a lot of the things are not in the zeitgeist right now. So I think just to sum it up, so investigating just for the prosecution's sake and manipulating the cases in line with the prosecution, that should never be so. So there is this in the rule of law. So this is almost like a legal Bible. So this is related to the legal rules. It's almost like a proverb. So even if you miss out 10 thieves, you should not make one person who is tried for wrong allegations, and this had existed since several thousands of years ago. However, how is it like in reality? So this is the thinking that I get. So if someone, based on personal interest, were to indict someone and imprison them personally, or make them lose lives, that's a wrongdoing. So you don't even have to think about it. That cannot be the case ever. However, if citizens gave a person the authority to block such wrongdoing, but you are using the power of law to do it, so for instance, if you're giving a person a death sentence by saying that this person is a spy and execute that death sentence the next day immediately, so that's not right. Or if you are requested by an unethical person and you take the property away from that person and indict them with wrong allegations and imprison them and make that person live in prison, then which is more wrong? So if you're using the power of authority, that's more wrong. However, it happens a lot. So that shouldn't happen. So this is a primitive society if this happened. Unfortunately, this exists in reality. And it is important that this is not the case. So as for the judicial power, this is the last resort to keep the national order. So all our citizens say this. So after fighting for a long time, in the end, people say, okay, let's follow the law. So this is the last trust, and this is the final resort. However, the person with a lot, if this person were to misuse it for their own purpose, then what would it be like for our citizens? So we cannot fight with our fists and we cannot deny on our friends, and then that will lead to the destruction of the national order. That is why justice is important. And if we can narrow the scope of it, and if we look at the prosecution reform, so prosecuting just for the sake of indictment, that is a bad case. However, while we talk about it, it had become worse and it had exacerbated, and we now all feel it in our bones. And here, when I say a prosecutor, I'm talking about a prosecutor who can have the power to indict others. And taking the power of investigation away, well, I don't know if I can say away, but separating that power for investigation, there were quite a lot of opinions that said this should not happen, but I think that is not the case now. So the need for reformation had grown since. So I think it happened because they had done wrong themselves. So separation, prosecution power, and the investigation power, I don't think there are any differences in opinions about that. Then as for indictment and as for prosecution, in itself should be done by the prosecutor. However, then who will be investigating? So separating it, there is no difference in opinion, but who should be the one investigating? Then can the police bear that all? Then what are we going to do about the power given to the police officers? So we have not talked about the excessive growth of the police, but that could also lead to side effects, because if you give them too much power, then it could be misused. So we do have to separate, but we don't know about what we have to do about the concentration of power in the police officers. And we talked about the separation of prosecution and the investigation. That I have no difference in opinions about. So, Ms. Lee, you didn't ask about why we're doing it and whether we have to do it, but you asked about when. So to be doing it before Chuseok holiday, so I think the candidates for the leader of the party is saying that. So I think systemizing it might be possible before Chuseok holiday. But we have to talk about it together with the National Assembly, and I cannot wield power in the National Assembly. However, for us to come up with a perfect system, of course, that will take a very long time. But the important thing is that we might be able to organize and structure things before the Chuseok holiday. But of course, the decision will be on the National Assembly. So I will carry out discussion, but I will also have to respect the National Assembly. But this is also related to the personnel appointment in the prosecution and the prosecutor's office. So head of the prosecution and who will be acting as the acting head of the prosecutor's office, and who will be the one giving out directions, and who the heads of the prosecutors will be, and so forth. So whether this is related to the speed or the pace, I think it might be related, or it might not be related. So I haven't really thought about that. But I think it might be a bit related. But as I have said this quite frequently, as for prosecution reform, this is one done by National Assembly, because this is something related to changing the system. So we have to make sure that we come to a decision. But this is one where the National Assembly has to come to a decision based on passing of the bill and legislation. So what we need to do is we minimize any conflicts that might arise, and we make sure that the law is implemented very smoothly. And for that to be possible within the government and within the presidential office, we have to have one who understands the prosecutors really well. And as I have said before, the key personnel in charge of it, in terms of the appointment of those persons, if we cherry pick between those who were related, who were close to this person, and so forth, then we don't get anyone out. And as I said before, civil officers just follow the orders given by their leaders. So if there is a person appointed for a term, that person is no different from a civil officer, whoever that person may be. Because if you want, then you can change that person at any time. So this is a task that has to be passed through legislation by the National Assembly and a decision made by the president, so you don't have to worry about it. So it's not related to the pace.
Thank you. I think I should speed up a little bit, so I'll try to speak more succinctly. So we would like to give this opportunity to the foreign press. The foreign press, the president will select the person. Okay, we will have two foreign press.
From the AFP news agency. Good morning, Mr. President. Where is your administration at in terms of the tariff negotiations with America? And can you realistically achieve a deal by next week? Or are you hoping for an extension?
네, 여기서 순차 통역해 주시죠.
대통령님 안녕하십니까? 저는 AFP의 캐트린 발톤 기자입니다.
여기도 잘못 알아듣겠는데 좀 천천히 말하세요.
예, 현재 미국과의 관세 협상이 현재 어떠한 상태에 있는지, 다음 주 관세 유예 기간 전에 완료될 가능성이 있는지 어떻게 보시는지 여쭙고 싶습니다.
네. 제가 천천히 해도 잘 알아들을까 말까 너무 말이 많으셔.
That was a very fast-paced question. Well, in terms of tariff negotiation, I knew that I would get this question, so I did ponder over what I should say and what's the answer. So first of all, we have a lot of different aspects because we have a security issue, and also it could have a lot of different impacts. So I'm going to be very careful. Tariff negotiations, it's not easy. That is for sure. So, and also, can we finish this before before 8th of July? This is also not determined. We are doing our best and our utmost, and also for the both parties, it should be bothly and mutually beneficial. And that should be the conclusion. But as of yet, we are not sure what the other sides actually want. So that is not clearly determined. So that is why we are doing our best at the moment. And also, multidimensionally, the topics, we are exploiting a lot of different topics as well. And also, I think all I can say is that we're going to do my best. So I'll give one more opportunity to the foreign press, the person who is at the very back, the person who is the farthest from myself. Hello, I am from Sankei newspaper, Sakura. Congratulations on your presidency, and also when you were the representative of the party, I would like to thank you for your communication with our media. So I hope that continues. Well, in terms of the relations with Japan, that is my question. Mr. President, you have a lot of emphasis on the Korea-U.S. Japan cooperation, and also, and in particular in Japan, they have these kidnapped people in Japan that they would like to renegotiate in terms of the kidnapped Japanese to North Korea. So in terms of human rights, what kind of cooperations can you have and do you foresee? And in terms of Korea-Japan relations, it has been 60 years of the diplomatic ties, and just like in Daejung-Obuchi Declaration, do you think you could adopt a joint declaration, or do you have any plans as such? Thank you. Well, I think that gentleman we have had the luncheon with, right? Yes. I once had a lunch with the foreign press members, and somebody wrote that I only talk with the China media, and this gentleman is from Japan media. Well, in this daylight, we still have such fake news that is spreading, and that's quite difficult to understand. Well, anyway, thank you very much for your question. Korea-Japan relations, this is very sensitive and we have a lot of sensitive topics. And during my campaign, I also said this, but the Korea-Japan relations, we are close but far countries, and we are sharing our backyard. So we cannot be separated, actually. And also, this is a theory of democracy, liberal democracy, and also North Korea's provocation of missile and nuclear missile provocations. We're both disclosed to that. And also, we have a special alliance with the U.S., so such relations are the same. Strategically and military-wise, we have the shared understanding, and we also have many rooms of cooperation in terms of economy, and we do have to cooperate. And also, the private exchange is very brisk. I think annually we have 12.3 million people of exchange each year. So that is why we're so precious to each other. But on the other hand, we have historical issues that are not resolved as of yet, and because of the history, some people are still in agony. And of course, not only Republic of Korea, but also people in Japan, and Japan itself is suffering from the past issues. And also, we have territorial disputes surrounding Dokdo. We can't say it's a dispute because it is clearly the territory of the Republic of Korea. So it's not a dispute, but it's kind of a controversy, I would say. And such conflicts and issues of conflict do exist, but we should not mix them together because the issues are issues. And as I said earlier, even in wartime, cooperation and dialogue continues. So you fight with your right hand, but your left hand holds the other hand. So that is, I think, the stance that we should maintain. And I met with the Prime Minister of Japan at G7, and I was very delighted to meet him. I'm not sure what his perspective was on me, but I kind of expected that he was vigilant. I wanted to show him that he could have rest assured, and we could cooperate. And in terms of North Korea and addressing North Korean issues, we have to cooperate. In terms of economy, we also have to cooperate. That would be mutually beneficial. And the other part would have damage, and I take only the interests or profits. That's not the case. We have to be profitable on both sides. So I think that's the direction forward, and I think it is doable. And like Kim Dae-jung Obuchi Declaration, very clear relationship framework, I do agree that we could have such things, and that would be very helpful. And I initially thought about visiting Japan as soon as possible, but because of the elections coming up in Japan, it's quite busy on the ground, so we are not able to land a date at the moment. About shuttle diplomacy, this is the initiative that I brought up first. Since we are very close to each other, we can visit each other anytime so that misunderstandings could be minimized, and anything that we can cooperate through dialogue and communications, we can. And North Korea human rights issue, is it North Korea's human rights issues or human rights issues related to North Korea, that's a little bit ambiguous here, but the abductees of Japanese abductees, I know that this is a great interest point of Japan, because when I was talking on the phone with Prime Minister Ishiba, he also mentioned this topic. So whenever the point in time would be, the human rights violation issues, we should resolve it whenever we can. And also, the family members of these abductees and the abductees themselves, if possible, we should free them and release them. And in terms of my government, if we have any parts that we can take part in or we could take the role in, I'm not sure what we can do, but if there are any, then we are going to take part in that endeavors, and I agree with that. Such endeavors should take place. It seemed like North Korea is also making efforts. They're not rejecting it or denying it, so I hope that it solves out. The human rights issues in North Korea is a very complex issue. The human rights issues in Republic of Korea should also be resolved. Human rights issues in North Korea, of course, we would have to pay attention to the separate issues themselves, but the human rights issues of North Korea is important by giving humanitarian aids to North Korea. That's my take.
So I think we have to speed up, and hopefully we can get more questions. So I'm going to do my best. So I should be talking a bit less, right? So thirdly, we will go into society and culture, but we can also get a mixture of other questions as well. But it seems like the ballot draw is being well received. So why don't you, Ms. Park, pick 2 business cards?
영어 뽑아서 제게 주시면 제가 이름을 호명해 드리겠습니다. 네. 네, 감사합니다.
Thank you.
사람은 어떻게 뽑았어요?
So then, so this person, who are the ones drawing? So these are secretaries. So secretaries were also selected.
네. 아시아 투데이 홍선미.
So Ms. Hong Sun-mi from Asia Today. So can you pass on the microphone? So let us get the question first. So, hello, President Lee. I'm Hong Sun-mi from Asia Today. First, I'd like to congratulate you. And I'd like to talk about the state of affairs and the conflicts. Actually, with the medical students, the conflicts have been remaining for over a year and a half, and it seems like we have to resolve this issue urgently. So what's your view on it, and how do you plan to resolve it? So as I came into office, I looked at many different current affairs, and of course I do have to deliberate on them before I came into office. One area that I had the least confidence in was about this medical situation. But I think things are getting better. So firstly, with the change in the government, this sense of tension, I don't know how should I say this, but this distrust is being alleviated a bit. I heard that some medical students are returning to school, and I hope in this term students will be able to return, and the government should do its best to help them out in returning to school. And I think one sign of hope that I see is the following. So as for the candidate for the Ministry of Welfare, I heard that the medical industry is welcoming this person, so I think this is a sign of hope. So
과도한
the former government
억지스러운
was a bit
정책,
excessive
그리고
in implementing policy, and it was also unilateral and hard to accept. So I think things have been worsened because of such a situation, and it led to a disruption in the medical industry, and there were a lot of challenges. And I'll try to make sure that we can hold a lot of dialogues. And I think we need to have a frank talk. We need to get rid of the misunderstandings. So I should maybe meet with the head of the commission, Park Dan, and maybe meet with some of the medical societies as well. So I think the problem was with heavy distrust to begin with. So we need to be able to recover trust and be able to build on it. And as long as we can have some discussions, we might be able to resolve it fully. So first, I have high anticipation to appoint the Ministry of Welfare first. And the other business card was about from journalist Lee from Gyeongnam Daily. So if you can hold your hand, please. So since I'm from a provincial newspaper, I would like to ask about the province first. So public institutions moved to the rural districts. I heard that President Lee, you will be pursuing it. So could you disclose some plans that you have in mind? And also, last May in Sacheon, Gyeongnam Province, Muju Airport was newly established. However, the presidential and the district national assemblyman said that we have to integrate Sacheon and the surrounding regions for us to have the necessary economic effect, and a legislation bill was proposed. However, many different politicians in the area opposed to it, and this is leading to conflict. So what's your view, President Lee? So this is also a very difficult question. So as for Daejeon, Chungnam, I believe the media from those areas might ask a completely different question. So as for the first plan on the move of public institutions, we have not established a plan yet. And as for this, once we have an organized structure for the relevant institutions and agencies, we'll look into it. We have not come with a detailed plan yet. As for locating or relocating certain public institutions, it's a very difficult issue. As for the Ministry of Marine Industry, I propose to move this ministry to Busan, and Daejeon and Chungnam region showed great opposition. And Incheon said, why to Busan? And from the perspective of a person making policies, of course, this is always an issue that we're going to face. And as for the region in the Gyeonggi-do province, without any exception, for most part, we made a decision to move them to different northern regions and the western regions, and there were a lot of loud noises, but ultimately, our Korean citizens had high level of citizenship, and once it was logical and rational, then they all accepted it. And I haven't heard that my approval rating as a governor dropped because of that decision afterwards. And as for the moving of public institutions, as long as we have grounds and as long as we have the right standards, I believe our citizens will be accepting. And since we have talked about it, I'll talk about the Ministry of Marine and Fisheries. As for the situation in Busan is quite serious, and it gets more serious as long as we get further away from the capital region. So there are people who are commuting from the metropolitan area, and the southern boundary line is coming down, so the SLL is coming down even more. And there is the Namdo, Yeongnam, Gangwon province, and Gyeongbuk areas and so forth. But actually, the situation is better than those areas that I mentioned. However, moving public institutions out of capital region, and we actually focus on areas like Chungnam and Daejeon and so forth. But if we were to move them to a more difficult region, then one of them would be the example for Ministry of Marine and Fisheries to Busan, and that is appropriate because there are certain difficulties there. And just moving one ministry, if we say, like if people say this cannot be done, we're going to have everything. I don't think that Busan residents will say that. As for Daejeon, Chungnam, and Sejong City, as for the movement of the administrative institutions, they receive benefits. However, the more difficult challenge that we may face would be from the academia, but I don't think we're going to receive this series of positions from them. And I heard that some people say, why Busan and not Incheon? But isn't move to Daejeon important? So if you say, if you're going to go elsewhere, come to Incheon and not Daejeon, I don't think that makes sense. So Daejeon is a growing city, and if you're going to go to Busan, come to Incheon, I don't think that makes sense. You can make that argument, but I don't think you can get some acceptance when you say that. And since we talked about Incheon, just to make sure that I get rid of any misconception, let me say this. So as for the court, so the court for the Marine Corps should be done in Incheon and not in Busan. We can have it in both. So if you propose that it should only be in Incheon and Busan, I don't think such arguments will be made. And also concentrating the institutions and agencies related to the agency of space, I don't think I can give you a clear answer on it right now. So I'll make sure to worry about it, and I'll think about which one is more reasonable and how the selection should be.
Next is Secretary Bae Soo from OBS. Since we think we should cover more in terms of politics and diplomacy, please draw one name card. Thank you. So, is this person winning a prize or something? No, actually, I think they would like better to have an opportunity to ask. Kim So-jung from MediaPen. Hello, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Your approval ratings is quite high, almost 60%, and I believe that is expression of people's anticipation to your administration. And also, there is an also like imperialistic presidency system that is maintained, and also the ruling party is the majority, and therefore the legislative power could be weakened of the National Assembly. And in terms of this, do you have any plans to complement such areas with any plans or measures? Yes, I have heard that the overwhelming majority of the National Assembly is taken by the ruling party, and also the president's power is quite big. Isn't this a problem? But what I want to say is that this is the decision of the people. Always the situation would be either way. It would be the opposition party bigger and the ruling party small, or the other way around. So until today, the history of Republic of Korea, it was also always the opposition party of the majority. And
거의 없었죠.
I don't think there were almost no cases where the ruling party had the majority, and I think this is the first in history such phenomenon happened. And also, politics is a relative thing, and the people selected the Democratic Party or the presidential candidate of the Democratic Party. There would be some people who would have chosen me or the party because they like them, but also there are people who selected me because they didn't like the other party. So I know this as a fact. So the approval ratings shows that we should strive more to make people think that, oh, this person is doing his job. So because of this phenomenon of the ruling party being the majority, I don't think it is right to say that that is your responsibility. And we also have our regional elections coming up next year, and that will be also another judgment. And another judgment comes up the year later. So there's always a judgment by the people. So if there is something wrong, it will change. And the regional elections next year would be an indirect assessment, but 3 years later, the election would be the judgment on the President Lee Jae-myung, the Democratic Party ruling party, and also the Democratic Party majority National Assembly. And also the present situation being that the overwhelming ruling party as the Democratic Party, and also the president being from the ruling party, I think that itself is not something that we can do or change. It's the fact. And also, I know that the approval ratings, about 20% or 30%, are saying that I am really, really bad. That would be because of my shortcomings, and that would be also because of some other issues. And for that, I think it is a matter of me trying to persuade them or making a actual change to their livelihoods and their lives. So, of course, they might not like me, but they would think that, okay, I'm doing good or a better job. So other presidents, like former President Moon Jae-in, had 80% approval, and another former president had almost like 80%. So I don't think my approval ratings are so high. So I would be very humble and will try to prove myself to the people and be selected by and be recognized by the people. And also about the imperialistic presidential system. As we all have experienced, president being imperialistic, I think that itself does not make much sense, because the National Assembly, if the opposition party is the majority, there's not much things that could be done. The former president struggled a lot, didn't he? Well, of course, I was the representative of the opposition party and now in the seat of the president. And of course, there is a reflective aspect of what we have done, and I reckon that he would have struggled. And it is not that imperialistic, as a matter of fact. And in terms of what we can do, in terms of the system, I don't think this is the role of mine, but the role of the auditing, if that could be transferred to the presidential office, I think that would be favorable. And also for the president's own sake, it is good for the president to be audited. So that is why I made the
불편하고 그러긴 하겠지만
order of the special
불행을
investigation system.
불행을 당하지 않도록
So
예방하는 게 중요하다.
this is to prevent
있는 뭐
any
비리를 찾아내는 뭐 지금이야 한 달밖에 안 됐으니까 뭐
difficult
비리
situations
한달
or
반밖에 안
any
앞으로도
sad
혹시라도
situations that might happen to the individuals surrounding the president or the president and the president's family. And therefore, I believe it is beneficial for all
요청하라고 해놨습니다.
to
좀 그럴 때
have an appointment from the National Assembly
이런 것들은 좀
of a special investigator
제도를 바꾸는 것은 지금 단계에서는
to
깊게
the
생각해
presidency. And in terms of changing the system itself, I did not
제가
have a
서
chance
있는
to
여기 앞에
have
서울경제
deep thoughts about it.
성서공사가 뽑기를
So
한
as I
번만 더
was
하자라는
standing
기준이
here,
나와서
journalist Hong Jong-ho from Seoul Economic Daily asked to draw once more. So this will be the last question.
아까 배수 기자님께서 한 번 더
So Mr. Bae,
질문 부족했던 거 아니냐라는
it seems like
의견이 있어서
we have one more question coming from the livelihoods and economy section. So if you could pick one more business card.
네. 울산신문 김
So Ulsan Daily, Kim Eung-sam journalist. So I hope this is related to the livelihoods and the economy. So you can of course ask freely. So I am Kim Eung-sam from Ulsan Daily. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to ask questions. So since my daily is in Ulsan, I'll talk about Ulsan. I'll talk about the 요거 삼탁 or system. So I would like to ask about your view on it. So as for it,
아마 뭐잘 처음 들어보신 분도 계실
so I think there are probably people who have heard about it for the first time.
수도권 1급 체제다.
So right now, a lot of people are saying that the Korea is a polarized system where everything is related to the metropolitan area. So people are saying that this should be the E5
충청권,
hub and 3 special city.
호남권,
So like the Honam region, 충청권. If you were to include that, then including Seoul, then it would be the 5 hubs instead of 1 hub.
이제 여기서 제외된 강원도,
And Gangwon province, Jeonbuk, and Jeju are excluded. So those are the
별도
special autonomous regions.
삼특 체제라고 우리가
So then it would relate it to the 5 hub, 3 special city.
균형 발전의
So that's how we named it.
정책이죠.
And this is a core principle and core policy for development of the provincial regions.
부울경 동남권,
And also the Puul and Gwangju, Gyeongnam, and the Honam regions and so
앞으로
forth.
제가 이제 뭐 정책이든
So
재정이든
whether it be policies or finances, we're going to focus on these different hubs and special cities.
서울대 10개 만들기라고.
And one of them I heard is to make 10 different Seoul National Universities. So to foster provincial universities and building infrastructures and coming up with institutions for fostering talents and also attracting companies into different provincial regions and so forth.
종합해서
So I'm going to comprehensively think about those.
과 똑같지는 않겠지만
So of course these regions may not be the same as the metropolitan areas, but we should come up with new hubs, and I keep talking about it.
개별적인 정책들이 집행이 될 텐데
So we're going to carry out many individual policies, and I might be visiting other regions,
등등을 통해서
and I might hold meetings with the representatives from different provinces to talk about how we can concretize this 5 hubs, 3 special city system. So I'll continue to talk about it.
제가 이게 기자들의 질문에 답한다는 걸
So this is about media asking questions and myself talking, but maybe we can continue a bit more.
통신사들한테 기회를 좀 주시죠.
So why don't we give some opportunity to the telecommunications company? And I have been getting statistics, and we have questions from various different daily newspapers. So we have a lot of provincial newspapers. So since we have gotten questions from many of the provincial newspapers, what about than from the metropolitan areas.
손 들어주시면 마찬가지로
So if the major newspapers can ask questions, then so maybe Yonhap News didn't get a chance, right? And Newses? News One already asked questions. Also, News One already asked a question. So Yonhap, so Newses. So no, not Newses. News One. So there is Yonhap, Newses, and who else?
미안합니다.
So I'm sorry.
연합하고 일단
Yonhap, Newses. Why don't we get questions from these first?
예, 대통령님, 연합뉴스 황윤기 기자입니다.
I'm Hwang Yoon-gi from Yonhap News Agency. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, I would like to ask a minor question, but it is not a petty question, and a question about the discriminated. When you were the candidate of your party, you said that there should be a societal consensus in terms of the minority. If there is a societal consensus that is necessary, do you have any intentions to have such town hall meetings to get these consensus? And also, if the discrimination prohibition law, if this is too premature, then do you have any plans that would be the intermediate plan or law that goes to discrimination prohibition law? Well, maybe I shouldn't have given you the opportunity. That's a joke. This is a very sensitive topic. This is also an important task of the society. But first of all, I'd like to focus more on the livelihood and economy, because this is a pressing issue. Because there is a economy first, and things that is less of an importance could be delayed a bit. So I do believe that we should have a very cumulative societal debate and discussions on such issues. And it is, if possible, should be taken the lead by the National Assembly. Of course, if nothing works out, we could take the lead. But if possible, it should be the National Assembly who can have and hold such debate on such provocative issues. The living partnership law, I think that was one of our campaign pledges, but I will take more attention to those issues.
And also Newses. So I think this will be the final question. Yes, I think that should be so. I think starting at 12. I also have another conference set. So thank you for giving me this final opportunity. I'll ask you a very easy question. Thank you. So, since we only have one more question, I would like to mix a few questions. So, we talked about the Korea-US summit and Korea-Japan summit. So, I understand that you are finding time to have those summits. And I am sure you also have some vacation plan on August. So, as for this plan for the summits and your vacation, could you disclose of them? As for Korea-US summit or Korea-Japan summit or Korea-China summit, if there is an opportunity, I would like to meet as many people as possible. So for the advancement of Korea's economy, right now, we cannot exaggerate if we say that it has been based on trade and through international trade. However, with biasing the market, we are facing challenges, and the market has to be diversified as well. And therefore, I think diplomatic competence is important. So when I was the mayor or when I was the governor,
기업인들하고 같이 하니까
I have worked together with different business people on overseas exchange
대한민국은 이제
affairs, and I think that was quite
주요
efficient.
국가가 됐기 때문에
And Korea is now recognized as one of the powerhouses in the world.
신경 쓰고
So we should look into diplomacy a bit more, and I think it might be better if I meet more people and expand our horizons. And by doing so, we will be able to help out in our products and us entering overseas countries through our products and through our cultural goods as well. And as for my vacation, when I was the governor of Seongnam or the mayor of Seongnam City, I went on vacation twice, and my senior mayors scolded me a lot for it. So whenever I go on vacation, it rains, and then there's a flood or there is some natural disaster, and it seems like those disasters are waiting for me to happen. So then my senior said, as an elected public officer, how can you go on vacation? When you open your eyes, you have to be the president. So that's why, as a mayor, I didn't really go on vacation. But then that also led to side effects. So then my subordinates could not take a rest. So then they complained to me about it. So I do have to decide on my vacation season. However, during that vacation season, I might be still working. And anyhow. But this time, I think I will have to go on vacation. But I heard that there will be the party conference during the time. So anyhow, I don't know for sure, but I will be taking a rest. So once the regime stabilizes, then I do have to take a vacation, because once everything is stabilized, like on a ship, then the captain does not have to go out on to give out all the directions. So I think that is the same case. So I think as long as we can stabilize, then I'll go on vacation. So, and when I go on vacation, maybe we can have a free discussion time. So maybe we can draw some journalists to meet together with me during my vacation. So anything more to say? So you already had your chance. Oh, he did not get a chance. So it's your. So if I can say one more thing. So we didn't have any chance to give our chance to our citizens, but we're going to have another dialogue with our citizens. So I like to say that we're going to have another chance.
So what was your question? I'll give you 30 seconds. I'm from Seoul Economic Daily, Song Jong. Well, you talked about the balanced growth and the concentration on the metropolitan area, and the new town would be like drinking seawater when you're thirsty, right? Or salt water. Well, since we're short on time. So the real estate measures, because of that, the loans are strictly regulated, and it seems that it would not be a good signal to the market that you're not going to make new cities. So I'd like to ask your opinion. Well, we have many remaining new cities that are planned already. It's quite a big scale. So I was talking about if we are going to plan on a completely new city. The new cities that are already in the pipeline, we are going to expedite the speed. And in terms of real estate market, this loan regulation itself, this time around, this is just a prelude. We have many real estate market type of measures. We could suppress the demand or repress the supply. And not only about the housing land, new land, but we also have many measures that we can utilize utilize the existing lands. And also, in terms of supply, we have many diverse types of measures that we can take. And also, suppressing the demand itself, we have so many other plans that we could use. I believe the future of this country would be really depending on this real estate market situation. The real estate itself is focused in the metropolitan area, and the policy itself is, because of the speculative demands, it's making it even worse. So I would like to have a fundamental change, and now I think it has to move into the fund capital market rather than real estate market focused wealth building, and also regional balanced policy. It would take time, but we are going to firmly pursue it so that we can resolve these issues of regional extinction and concentration of metropolitan city. So that's the direction that I have in mind. And in terms of curbing the demand, we have so many different types of plans that we can utilize. This is just a teaser. And also, in terms of supply, if we speed up, I don't think we will see anything that is of too much of a worry. Well, thank you very much for such a long period of time. Well, with this last question and answer, I think our presidential aides would be very even more busy. We have covered many different types of questions in 3 different areas. And of course, you would already know, but we are exceeding the time that we have allotted. So let us invite the closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for staying with me for a very long period of time. And I would like to also thank the citizens and other journalists who have viewed us through the online broadcast. So I know that there is high hopes for myself and the new administration. So as we have also said, Korea is a great country and Korean citizens are great citizens. Whenever there are national crises, our citizens came forth to overcome those crises. And as for revolutions that we face that are unprecedented in the world was quite shocked about how we overcame those. And we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. However, I think the public officers should be the ones taking the first steps. And as long as our citizens also support us, then we will be able to overcome all those difficulties. And I think we will be able to enter an era that is unprecedented and full of hope. So I'll make sure to think 1 second like 1,000 tons of gold, and I will make sure to think of my time as president to be one with high anticipation. I'll do my utmost. Thank you. So now we will complete the first 30 days of the president, and we will finish the press conference. So we will first have President Lee lead first.
So that was President Ijeong taking questions at his first press conference marking his first 30 days in office.